today's stream it's really, really big. And it's really big in a couple ways. One is that I think it's very heady. There's a lot of information to take in. But two, it's also big in that it's a tool, and it's an expansion on the tool that we learned last stream, which was our ABC tool, our ABC power up. It's an expansion to that puts it into practice for us. But it's like this one thing has been proved, like this one power up has been proven to prevent depression and anxiety, and increase success, increase your health, scientifically proven. It's backed up by a ton of research. So it's huge in that it's heady and there's a lot to take in and a lot of material to cover. And it's huge in that the potential is just so much there to help us all overcome our own, really our negative thinking and our depression when we have it, because we all get depressed from time to time. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, but it's going to be a lot of information, guys. So, ask questions in chat, or tell me to slow down, or tell me when you've had enough for the day and we can come back to this next week and continue it. Right. So tell me what you guys need and I'll have your back. So I'm calling this stream The Resilient Ones, and it's because, well, here's why. So resilient people thrive, right? And they're more likely to fulfill their potential because they're willing to be vulnerable, they never give up, and they recover even when the worst kinds of, even from the worst kinds of trauma. And what resilient people all have in common is that they're optimists, okay? So, and I'll get into that because optimism is a loaded word. There's a lot of judgment around being an optimist, you are considered sometimes to be naive and out of touch with reality. So I'll really get into this, and I'm going to challenge that and reaffirm it. Anyways, but the good news is that optimism is actually a skill. It's a skill, and we can learn it, and we can choose to use it only when it's beneficial to us. So I'd say all of this cast comes from an amazing book called Learned Optimism by Dr. Martin Seligman, father of positive psychology. I talk about him a lot. He's given us a wonderful field of science to lean on when we're talking about what it takes to be fearless and to overcome and punch back. So I'm a huge fan. And this is the take that if you walk away with one quote, this is it from the book. What we want is not blind optimism, but flexible optimism. Optimism with its eyes open. We must be able to use pessimism's keen sense of reality when we need it, but without having to dwell in its dark shadows. Okay. So, in his book, Learned Optimism, he unpacks the difference between those who thrive and those who languish after adversity and during adversity. And how well you recover is determined by your thinking style, which is either optimistic or pessimistic. He calls it your explanatory style. So it means the way you explain what happens to yourself. It's either optimistic or it's pessimistic, and it's what's going on in between your ears. And he shares ultimately a tool for teaching yourself to think optimistically or have an optimistic explanatory style. Are you with me? I think you're with me. So this is an add-on to last week's ABC Power-Up. And what we're going to have is the ABCDE Power-Up. So eventually we're walking away with the final 2 steps to this. Hey, Tiki Meher! Happy to have you! Welcome! Yay, I'm glad you could make it today. I think you're all gonna... this is just awesome. I hope I do a good job at communicating its awesomeness. Right? Now we all know who she is because of the Badass Book Club cast. Yes, Tiki Meher is my mom. Meher is, I believe, mother in Gaelic. And Tiki is often her gaming handle. Yes, it's wonderful. All right. So it's an add-on to last week's Power Up. And I lost music in my headset, which it's not making me happy. So I'm going to quickly review... Uh-oh. my headset. I'm going to quickly review the ABC model. So basically what this says is that our reactions to adversity, they're determined by our beliefs about the adversity. So A is the adversity. It triggers our B, our beliefs, which in turn triggers C, which is our consequences. And our consequences is what we feel and what we do. Ah, perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Brianne. Yes, and Tiki Mahara knows it. She's in it. She's in it. She remembers because she's so wise. Yeah, so we can change the consequences we experience in life by changing our thoughts, right? We don't really have much control over the adversity that hits us. We have control over the rest of it. So that tool that Brianne just shared is for the power up is you literally are writing down every time you experience adversity, you're the A, the B, and the C process to develop awareness. And awareness is the key factor here, because if it's unaware, it's automatic and you have no control over what goes on. So to really hit this home, I want to do another quote from Dr. Seligman. And he says that our thoughts are not merely reactions to events, they change what ensues. For example, if we think we are helpless to make a difference, we will be paralyzed. The very thought, nothing I do matters, prevents us from acting. So that's a really powerful, that's an example of how the belief, nothing I do matters, results in a very dramatic, life-changing consequence, because you're gonna stop taking action and you're gonna start feeling helpless. And that leads directly to depression. So that's a very powerful example of how harmful what we tell ourselves can be. So it's the thoughts and the self-talk that we have when adversity strikes that determines our thinking style. So pessimism and optimism has to do with your view of your place in the world. So whether you believe you're valuable and deserving or worthless and hopeless. Okay, so it's the big stuff. It's like we are getting to the core of the quality of how we talk to ourselves. And I want to reiterate that these are thinking styles. They're not fixed personality traits. These are things that are changeable. They're not things that doom us. Hi, Project Gnarly. Hey, welcome. Nice to have you. I think I need to adjust Nightbot. He is, sorry about that. He is being very overly protective of this stream. It's like the first time I'm using Nightbot, so hang with me on that. I don't mind for emotes. That's silly that Nightbot does. Yeah, so welcome. So super nice to see you here and to have you in chat. I love it. Let me know if you have any questions. See, that's Nightbot kind of working. But okay. So yeah, so I guess like if becoming resilient isn't enough of a temptation to convince you to like do the work that I'm about to say, hey, this will change your life, here are like some other huge benefits to learning how to think optimistically. So one, I talked about it prevents depression and anxiety, guys. Like what? And one of the things I love that Dr. Seligman talks about is he had this quote in the book that just like warmed my heart, because he said depression is the common cold of mental illness. And it's so true, because it's something that I think our culture, like, still there's like a taboo around it, even though we all experience it. Like no one goes through life, I think, without having had an experience with depression, because it's a normal reaction. And whether or not we recover from depression, it turns out that it's tied directly to our thinking style, whether or not we're optimistic or pessimistic. Yeah, totally, Project Gnarly. It is. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like we all get depression, but it's like I guess this is a way to look at it. If our immune system is determined by our pessimistic thinking or optimistic thinking, and a pessimistic immune system, we're not going to do very well. We're not going to recover well from the depression. It's going to get worse. Whereas an optimistic immune system like protects us against really developing a severe case of depression. Yeah, I love that it does act as a catalyst. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't want our depression to thrive. We want to thrive, right? So Yeah, and that research actually shows that pessimistic thinking can transform like mere setbacks into disasters. And it can transform mere depression, like the common cold variety of depression, into a serious depression that can lead to, you know, a life-threatening situation. So, cool, Project Gnarly. Super happy to have you, for sure. Like, yeah, just really nice to have you here, and thank you for sharing that. You know, like, knowing that what I do matters it's gonna like keep me going for forever. So really, truly, purple heart twitch at you. It's really hard to do an emote from on my little teeny phone down there, but I'm feeling the love. Yeah, and I also, like, if you know streamers that do something similar, or they're, you know, they're helpful to people and they're positive, I would love to know about them, because I don't know a ton of streamers yet, and I want to know who my peeps are out there so I can learn from them and connect with them. So very, very, very cool. Thank you. Yeah, so the crazy thing too is optimism increases our chances of success. So, and this is for a very specific reason. Pessimists, they see good events as temporary or as flukes. So they're less likely to keep going even when they're succeeding along the way. They're more likely to give up because they're not believing that, oh my gosh, I succeeded because there's something permanent here about me that's making it happen, or about the world that's supporting me. Pessimists also then see bad events as like permanent, so they just give up. And success requires persistence over time, and pessimists don't really persist. So, and I'm going really fast today, guys, because there's so much information. So please calm me down if you need it. I need to hear from you. One of the things that we talk about a lot on Punch Life Back is self-actualization. You know, like fulfilling our potential and answering that call to become who we know we are or want to be. But all of that has such little meaning without optimistic thinking, because self-actualization requires risk-taking and failure. And what we just learned is that pessimists don't recover well from failure. So whether or not you're resilient really does come down to your thinking style. There's also a lot of research that I'm not going to get in. I am talking fast. All right. I'm just so excited. So, okay. So there's also a lot of research that backs up that optimists in general are healthier. I won't get into all of that. I don't have it with me today, but that research is out there. I am shooting a machine gun of knowledge. You're totally right. I will just slow my roll. Okay, I can do that. And if I start shooting again, like, keep me honest, Project Gnarly. I love it. So to my fellow optimists out there. So you may be listening to me being like, cool, I'm a badass. I'll just like bask in my badassity and like kind of stop listening. Okay, cool. So yeah, Mrs. Scott Evans, that is true, and that is exactly the point I was just about to make. Even if you're an optimist, you're not always an optimist in all situations, and you're not always an optimist in the situations that need optimism. So learning to think optimistically lets you have more consistency with your optimism, and it also lets you use it more wisely, because there are situations where being optimist isn't helpful and you want to be more pessimistic. There are downsides to optimism, and we want to be balanced about it. No, you weren't. Hey, Post-a-Hoax. Why does this big girl look like the type of person to lick their fingers before turning the page in a book? I believe you're talking about me, and I have been known to do that. Yeah. I do love to read and all that good stuff. I also lick my fingers before opening up those like really thin grocery bags for vegetables and fruit, because they stick together without a little bit of saliva. So yeah, it is true. So yeah, whether or not you're pessimistic or you're optimistic in your thinking style, everybody can benefit from learning this skill. because it protects against the downsides of being optimistic. And it also just gives you control, because unless we are aware, like we've been working on developing the awareness of our thoughts and how they're controlling our consequences in life. Now I'm going to be presenting a tool to help you now take control of those thoughts and to start changing them in service of what you want. So it's pretty cool. So, okay. I'm guessing there's like some pushback going on in at least some of your minds as to whether or not optimism is really something you want to take on. They are nasty bags. Well, see, that's the thing, so the grocery bags are nasty, Mrs. Scott Evans, and I realize that, but I just tell myself, one, I don't have the patience to do anything else, and two, that, I would just build up my immune system, right? And maybe I'm getting sick from it, but, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, cool. So Project Gnarly, what I'm doing is I'm adding on to what I call the ABC Power-Up from last week. And that was a tool for helping us, like, become aware of the thoughts we were saying to ourselves. So it was literally like we would just journal. So when an adversity would happen, like your car tire goes flat, or, you know, the person you waved to, like, didn't respond, like, whatever. You would write down the adversity, which is the A. Then you would write down what you started, like what the consequences were. So like how you felt and what you did. And then you would use that to understand and to like pull apart as best as you could the thoughts and beliefs you were telling yourself about the adversity. Because what you tell yourself creates your consequences. So we were just doing that as an exercise. And at the end of this, like towards the end of this cast, once like we got the foundation here and we can understand them, we're adding on a step D and a step E. So it's going to be the A, B, C, D, E that you see right there. Yeah. So, and I don't know NIP. I'm not that familiar with it. I would love to be. Yeah. Okay. Oh, cool. Thank you for sharing the link again. Okay. So, learned optimism, it's not positive thinking, and it's not like the power of positive thinking, because like positive thinking is like trying to believe statements without relying much on reason or evidence, whereas learning optimism is the way we're doing it, the way Dr. Martin Seligman lays it out in his book, is grounded on critical thinking. And like he says that learned optimism works not through an unjustifiable positivity in the world, but through the power of non-negative thinking. So, like here's an example of the difference. Like positive statements you say to yourself, like are affirmations, like every day in every way I'm getting stronger. Those have little to any effect on us. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I just saw you in chat. Yeah, it sounds similar. This definitely comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy for sure. For sure. And I think maybe what you're talking about does too. And I do recognize NLP. Yeah. Yeah, the power of non-negative thinking. So affirmations, they don't actually work. They don't really have much of an effect, but what you say to yourself during adversity does, and that's what we're working on. So yeah, there's a common like pushback to learning like optimistic thinking, which is that idea of like, well, I don't want to. Oh, that's awesome, particularly thank you. Or maybe Mrs. Scott Evans did. I don't know. There's a common pushback that's like optimists are naive, and I don't want to be like that, or I don't want to like lose my grip on reality. So to that point, I have some points of some alternative thoughts. Okay, so Dr. Seligman has this great thing. He says, like, if a drunk is reeling on the street and told you were repulsive, like, would you discount it? Right? And like, Yeah, you probably would. You'd be like, oh, he's just drunk, like, right? He's like not in his right mind. But when we say like equally groundless things to ourselves, we believe them. Like, we believe them. And that's because like we think of ourselves as credible, but we aren't. Often we distort reality more than drunk people do when it comes to talking about ourselves. So pessimists distort reality too. It's not just the optimists that do it. Just pessimists are doing it in a way that like hinders their ability to thrive in life, where optimists are doing it in a way that helps their ability to thrive in life. And like I talked about this a little bit, but the practice of working with how you think makes you more in charge of your thinking, not less in charge of it. So you're able to like intervene on what's normally automatic and like subject to lots of errors, and then correct those falsehoods. Oh, I'm still talking too fast. I'm not really against a clock. I'm just excited. So, yeah, I'll try to slow down again. So the practice of working with how we think gives us more control, not less. And within that control, now we can really start correcting the errors, right? And the falsehoods that we're telling ourselves to be true, but aren't. And like you can, like once you have this skill. Oh, cool. Yeah, Tiki Meher. So Tiki Meher has a life coach. That's right. Hi, Rolitex. So nice to have you back. Yeah, welcome. I've been streaming pretty much every Thursday since the first one. I've missed a couple, but it's really nice to see you. Yeah, very cool. Welcome. Really nice to have you back. So like once you have the skill and the awareness and you're working on your thinking, like you can now be strategic with your thinking. Like you can be strategic about when to use optimistic thinking and when not to use it. And right now, like probably like none of us have that skill, right? So we're kind of just at the control of our thoughts rather than the other way around. So, and this just makes us better at like getting our success and like overcoming our like self-imposed restrictions. And again, like this helps prevent depression and anxiety. So there's just so much cool. Hi, CC Rave. Yeah. Yeah, I have a much better mic now. Yeah, I did fix that for sure. So happy to have you guys back. That's so funny that you're both here. Oh my god, and speaking of things getting better, I just finalized a budget to build, like I am building a streaming shed. So it's gonna be like this shed on my property that is like truly, it's called the Shoffice. It's the shed office. And yeah, so like things are gonna get a lot better. Like my green screen will work better. I'll have a better camera. It's gonna be awesome, and I can't wait. And I hope you guys come back to remind me of the changes like you just did with the mic, because I'd forgotten about that, but so true. So Dr. Seligman says that the fundamental guideline for not using optimism is to ask yourself what the cost of failure is in the particular situation. So if the cost of failure is really high, like you might die, or someone else might die, or you might like tank a company, or it might get you kicked out of college, like, you know, like really, really big things, optimism is probably the wrong strategy. And you want to employ a little bit more of your pessimistic thinking. So getting really, right, the Shoffice, getting really specific, you want to use optimistic thinking when achievement is on the line. It definitely helps you achieve. We've talked about that. When you're concerned about how you're going to feel, because again, it fights off depression and it keeps up your morale. You want to use optimism when like the situation is really protracted and your health is an issue. because again, it helps you persevere, and it increases your resiliency, and it also increases your health. And it's also necessary if you want to lead or inspire people. There was this amazing part of his book where he talked about how Americans, like, pretty much without fail, will vote for the more optimistic candidate. Yeah, even if they're like less qualified and all that kind of stuff, it comes down to whether or not they're more optimistic. It's pretty influential. And you want to use pessimism when, again, like, your goal is really risky. There's a lot of danger in it. You also, like, if you want to be sympathetic to the troubles of somebody, or like you're talking to somebody who has kind of a bleak future, you know, like maybe they've just been diagnosed with cancer, right? Like, or, you know, they're suffering from like depression, like we all do from time to time. You don't want to come at them with optimism, right? Like, you don't want to be like, yeah, everything's gonna be fine, right? No, like that, like you're ignoring the pain that they're in. So you want to meet people with like where they're at, and once there's like trust built and they really feel heard by you, then you're probably okay to use more of your optimistic thinking. But you don't want to just like lead with it, because it actually like feels like you don't care and that you're not listening. But other than that, like helping somebody when they're down, right? Pessimism. And if something's really, really dangerous, pessimism. Other than that, like, choose optimistic like thinking style, and you'll be way better off and way, way more likely to succeed. So any questions, guys? Because we're about to take a test. Like, not a test, but I'm going to give you a chance to do an optimism, pessimism assessment by Dr. Seligman. And oh my gosh, Project Gnarly, I'm just seeing that you said optimistic thinking as a conscious process, and that is so true. That's exactly what I'm saying. Cool. So the assessment is something that's not going to take us very long. If you want to do it with me, like, please do if you can. If not, I'm going to post like here. Okay, I'm just going to do it. There's a link to it. Maybe Mrs. Scott can put it in chat for you guys. But yeah, do it now or later or whatever, right? Like at your own pace. But the rest of this stream is going to be about like understanding those results and then learning how to think like an optimist. So we're going to basically check in with where we're at, each of us, and go from there. So, and by the way, like, Dr. Seligman has found out that far more people than realize it are actually pessimists. And so, and you're going to see my results, which is kind of scary, but I'm keeping it real. So I'm going to the assessment right now, and I'm going to pop it up. Okay, so yeah, Project Gnarly, that is a really good point. And I think that's true for most of us, right? Like, our reactions are like automatic. And the reason is that our beliefs or our interpretations of that trigger happen almost instantaneously for us. Like, they've become such a habit that they happen really fast. So it's not like any of us are all of a sudden gonna be perfect, right? And like not react or just react the way we wish we would. No, like, this takes time, it takes effort. But as we do this work, like, we'll become more and more successful at changing those reaction habits. Or like, you know, owning up to them afterwards and apologizing and like going back and fixing them, right? Like, so yeah, like, there's no perfection here, like, ever. And we all do that. Like, I certainly do that. Okay, cool. So let me, here, I'll get the link. Let's see. I'll do it this way. Let me see if I can just want to go to... What? It's interesting. I'm getting a... Okay, so I'm going to type it in. It's going to take me a minute. I wish they would, like, let me do hyperlinks for you guys, like, in chat. Are they hyperlinks? I don't know. Okay. I'm working on it. It's almost there. I'm just gonna not do the bit.ly in case that's what's not working. I'm gonna do the full one. Okay, this should work. Did it? Oh, cool, and it is a hyperlink. I'm testing it on my phone. Cool. Okay, so that should work, guys. And like you may, if you haven't done any of their stuff before on my cast, you may have to take a couple of seconds and create a free profile. Cool. So it does work. Perfect. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna. So I'm in there, and I'm gonna just share my screen. There we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and just start taking it. Okay, so to get in, let's see. It's gonna look something like this. And then I'm logged in, so here, let me log out so you can really see what it looks like. It's gonna look like this. So you're gonna log in and you're just gonna create a login if you don't have it. Okay. Yeah, click on the link, create a username if you don't have it, log in, and then, which I'm doing right now so you can see it, and then you're gonna go to questionnaires. I mean, look at all this glorious stuff you can do. It's amazing. And this is all like heavily researched stuff, guys. It's awesome. So yeah, you're gonna go to the far right, and on the fourth one down is an optimism test. Oh, see, Mrs. Scott Evans is on it. And here it is. So, and again, like if you can't do it right now, like no sweat, right? Like you can do it later, and you'll understand it more when you do it later anyways, because you'll have watched the rest of the cast. So it's all good. So it says, read the description of each situation and vividly imagine it happening to you, even if it's never actually happened. Then read the 2 reasons for why this situation happened. Choose the cause more likely to apply to you. You may not like the way some of the responses sound, but don't choose what you think you should say or what would sound right to other people. Choose the response you'd be likelier to have. Choose A or B. So this is a little harder for me to do because I know you all are watching, but I'm gonna do my best to like be real honest here and not just put in what I think would make me look good. So I'm gonna go through it. So you and your spouse make up after a fight. A, I forgave him or her, or B, I'm usually forgiving. Okay. You forget your spouse's boyfriend, girlfriend's birthday. I'm not good at remembering birthdays. I was preoccupied with other things. You get a flower. So this is 32 questions. It's not bad. Okay. So you get a flower from a secret admirer. I am attracted to him or her, or I am a popular person. You run for a community office position and you win. I devote a lot of time and energy to campaigning. I work very hard at everything I do. Number 5, you miss an important engagement. Sometimes my memory fails me. I sometimes forget to change my appointment book. Yeah. You host a successful dinner. I was particularly charming that night. I am a good host. You owe the library $10 for an overdue book. Does that happen still? When I'm really involved in what I am reading, I often forget when it's due. I was so involved in writing the report that I forgot to return the book. Okay. Your stocks make you a lot of money. My broker decided to take a chance on something new. My broker is a top-notch investor. You win an athletic contest. I was feeling unbeatable. I train hard. You fail an important examination. I wasn't as smart as the other people taking the exam. I didn't prepare for it well. Oops. You prepared a special meal for a friend and he or she barely touched the food. I wasn't a good cook. I made the meal in a rush. You lose a sporting event for which you have been training for a long time. I'm not very athletic. I'm not good at that sport. You lose your temper with a friend. He or she is always nagging me, or he or she was in a hostile mood. You are penalized for not returning your income tax forms on time. Well, that's never happened. I always put off doing my taxes. I was lazy about getting my taxes done this year. You ask a person out on a date, and he or she says no. I was a wreck that day. I got tongue-tied when I asked him or her on the date. You're frequently asked to dance at a party. I am outgoing at parties, or I was in perfect form that night. You do exceptionally well in a job interview. I felt extremely confident during the interview, or I interview well. Your boss gives you too little time in which to finish the project, but you get it finished anyways. Yeah, I knew you would, Brienne. Yes, there is patterns. Your boss gives you too little time in which to finish a project, but you get it finished anyway. I'm good at my job. I am an efficient person. You've been feeling run down lately. I never get a chance to relax. I was exceptionally busy this week. You save a person from choking to death. I know a technique to stop someone from choking, or I know what to do in crisis situations. Your romantic partner wants to cool things off for a while. I'm too self-centered. I don't spend enough time with him or her. A friend says something that hurts your feelings. She always blurts things out without thinking of others, or my friend was in a bad mood and took it out on me. Your employer comes to you for advice. I am an expert in the area about which I was asked. I am good at giving useful advice. A friend thanks you for helping him or her get through a bad time. I enjoy helping him through tough times, or I care about people. Your doctor tells you that you are in a good physical shape. I make sure I exercise frequently. I am very health conscious. Your spouse takes you away for a romantic weekend. He or she needed to get away for a few days, or he or she likes to explore new areas. That one's... we're almost done. You are asked to head an important project. I just successfully completed a similar project. I am a good supervisor. You fall down a great deal while skiing. Skiing is difficult. The trails were icy. For me, it would be that. You win a prestigious award. I solved an important problem. I was the best employee. Your stocks are at an all-time low. I didn't know much about the business climate at the time. I made a poor choice of stocks. You gain weight over the holidays. You can't lose it. Diets don't work in the long run. The diet I tried didn't work. They won't honor your credit card at a store. I sometimes overestimate how much money I have. I sometimes forget to pay my credit card bill. Okay. And we're done. We're done. And now the internet world is thinking. It's taken a while. You attack me in my sleep again today. Do, 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 do. I hope it works and it doesn't time out. That would be sad. I let you How are you all doing? Yay, thank you, Tiki Maher. This is a playlist on Amazon Music, which I'm so grateful that Mrs. Scott Evans pointed out that I have commercial-free music because of Prime. So I get to have commercial-free music for you guys for a while. Oh, man, this is taking a while. Is anybody else having this issue? Or do you all have your results if you did it? All right, okay, so let me pull us back to here. Hi guys. While I'm waiting for that, okay, no worries, Tiki Maher. So let me pull up something. We're gonna start understanding positive or pessimistic thinking and optimistic thinking on a whole new level. And cool. So there's not a way to, like, I won't be able to, like, tell you how to grade the assessment. You'll have to do it online, because I don't have the, the formula or anything. But, yeah. Okay. So what I want to show you is this chart. And it's a little uglier than I intended, but there it is. And we're going to go over it because it's going to help us understand the two different ways of thinking. So yeah, for bad events, pessimistic thinking is permanent, it's pervasive, and it's personal. And then for good events, so optimists are the exact opposite for bad events. It's not permanent, it's not pervasive, and it's not personal. And we have the same pattern here on good events. You can just look at this and see that pessimists flip-flop their thinking from permanent, pervasive to personal for bad events, and then on good events, it's not permanent, not pervasive, not personal, and optimists are the exact opposite. Okay, so I'm going to unpack this because that's kind of a lot. So let's start, I think, by understanding what permanent means here, and it means that the cause of the adversity or the success is permanent. It's stable. It's something that never changes. So you'll hear words like always and never. We use them a lot when we're talking about things in a permanent sense. And not permanent is the opposite, right? So the cause of the adversity or the success is unstable or it's transient. So I'm going to give examples because I think they're kind of necessary here. So a woman named Rebecca is fired, so it's a bad event. A permanent pessimistic response would be something like, there will never be enough jobs to go around. So note the use of never. A not permanent response, which is an optimistic response, is something like, the company fell on hard times. Now a good event, like Rebecca got promoted, the not permanent response, which is pessimistic, would be something like, the company is doing well right now and is promoting lots of people. So that's something like, just right now they're doing well, it's transient, it's not permanent. The permanent or optimistic response could be, well, of course I got promoted, bosses always love me. So note the use of always. I'm thinking that makes sense. If not, please let me know. And then pervasive means that the cause of the adversity or the cause of the success is global. It's affecting every area of your life. Whereas not pervasive means that it's localized and it's specific. So universal expectations of failures causes us to give up on everything when failure strikes in one area. Whereas a specific or localized explanation of failure may cause us to give up in that one area, but it won't touch the other areas of our life. So using the same example of Rebecca being fired, a pessimistic pervasive response is something like, well, everyone's going to know I'm a loser, my girlfriend will dump me, and my friends will hang out with someone cooler, right? Whereas, and so it's like touching all the parts of this person's life. Whereas an optimistic and not pervasive response could be like, hey, time to look for a new job. Like, I'm not worried about any other part of my life, it's just my job. So a good example, right? A good event, which is Rebecca got promoted. The pessimistic response is not pervasive. So the good event is explained away by saying, like, I've got respect now at work, but I wish I had it at home too. So, yeah, things are kind of better at work, but the rest of my life is still crappy. And whereas an optimistic or pervasive response could be, you know, I get to move to a better house, I get to take my boyfriend on a trip, and I get to da-da-da-da-da, like, her whole life is improved. Yeah, it is kind of like an all or nothing response, for sure. For sure. It's like a very, it's much, I was gonna say it's much more black or white in a way. It's like a heavier response. Like, I definitely feel a heaviness to it. And then the third one, which is personal and not personal. Another way you can think of it is internal and external. So the cause of the adversity or the success is you, or it's not you. So, and people who blame themselves when they fail, they have low self-esteem, and they often think that they're worthless or talentless or even unlovable. And I know, like, I have definitely said these things to myself because I have often felt worthless and unlovable. I think it's very human that we do this. But people who blame external events instead of themselves, they don't lose self-esteem when bad events happen, you know? And, yeah, so, like, the bad event of Rebecca being fired, the personal pessimistic response is, I'm an idiot. Of course I got fired. The not personal optimistic response could be something like, well, John was angry and took it out on me. So it's not me, it's outside of me, it's John, it's external. With Rebecca getting promoted, the pessimistic response would be, well, Julie, my boss, was in a good mood. So note that the pessimist here is being pessimistic because they're not saying what the optimist would say, which is, well, of course they promoted me, I'm a creative genius, right? They're saying, like, I got promoted because of something in me, whereas the pessimist says, I got promoted because of these conditions outside of myself. So one thought is really empowering and will, like, cause a person to continue taking action, and, like, one thought is completely not empowering and kind of freezes you. So, yeah, okay, we've talked, though, that there are downsides to optimism that I want to touch on again, because they are real. So optimists, because they externalize bad events, they often don't take responsibility for their role in bad events. So, and that can be a problem, right? Like, they can be kind of oblivious to what they've done wrong or how they've hurt other people, or maybe where some of their weaknesses are, and that's all going to bite them in the butt. But being aware of this, like, makes you less susceptible to the error. So you can always just, if your test result, like your assessment results came back and you're, like, super optimistic about good events or about bad events, just, like, add a question in there of, like, is there something here that I need to own responsibility for, right? And sometimes optimists take, you know, really dangerous risks, but just remember that fundamental guideline between using optimistic thinking and pessimistic thinking is the cost of the failure. And if it's catastrophic, like really catastrophic, like life or death, like you're going to tank a company, you know, optimism is probably the wrong strategy. So the, balls, that sucks that it's not working. I think they're just having a rough day on their website. Oh, I don't know if you just heard my dog bark. He's upset about it too. Cody's upset. Yeah, Cody, I'm sorry. Yeah, it isn't working. That sucks. I'm sorry, guys. I built it up and then it didn't work. It does work. I've done it before. When you do it, what's going to happen is they're going to show you how optimistic or pessimistic you are for good events, for bad events, and they're going to show you your hope score. And your hope score is the single most important score on the assessment, because the higher your score, the more you find temporary and specific causes for your misfortune. And that's an inoculation to helplessness. And it's helplessness which really causes severe depression and severe anxiety. So pay attention to your hope score. And a low hope score will mean that you're more likely to find permanent and universal causes for misfortune, which is really the thinking practice of despair. So it's kind of your summary score on that assessment. Yeah, and email me, you guys, or chat me up through Twitch, with your scores and stuff. I would love to hear about it, and I love talking about this stuff. If you cannot tell, if you have any questions, just reach out. It's you can email me anytime at info@punchlifeback.com. So what do you guys think? I have here a just under 5-minute video that summarizes the book that we can watch. Oh my god, my score just came in. Here, let me show you the score. Let's do that first. So maybe some of yours will come up too. Here we go. So here's my scores. So these are my so remember, this is how I think about good events with permanence. And it's rating me against people they're using on the web, against gender, age group, occupation, educational level, and zip code. So it says people who believe good events have a permanent cause. People who believe good events have a permanent cause are more optimistic than those who believe they have temporary causes. So if your score is a 7 or an 8, you're very optimistic about the likelihood of good events continuing. So, oh my, I have an 8. So I'm very optimistic in this sense. And then they'll show you a 6 is moderately optimistic, a 4 or 5 is average, and then a 3 is moderately pessimistic, and a 0, 1, or 2 is very pessimistic. And again, oh good, you got yours. So when you get yours, as best as you can, suspend judgment about yourself, because again, none of this is fixed at all. This is just an indication of what your current habit of thinking is doing. That's it. It's just your opportunity here to change, to grow, and that's it. So okay, so this is the opposite, right? This is the bad events and the permanence measurement. So it literally is just the opposite of one we just did, and I have a 0, so it means that I'm very optimistic on that dimension. So we're looking, the next one, I like how they do this. Oh cool, you're sharing it. Ooh, cool. I'll understand it more as I go through this. So pervasiveness for bad events. So people who make universal explanations for their failures give up on everything when a failure strikes in one area. Whereas people who make specific explanations may become helpless in that one part of their lives, yet march stalwartly on in others. I love it, right? When it comes back that you're average. Yeah, I hate hearing that I'm average. I always want to be special. But that's just me, right? Nobody else. Okay, so my score was a 1, so I'm very optimistic on this dimension. Now, you guys, I'm not that surprised because I have, I'm a life coach, right? And the way I see, one of the main jobs of a life coach is to help people with what they're telling themselves and to help them get past their own thinking. So this is my profession, so it's not surprising that and I walk the talk, so it's not surprising that it's coming back this way. Okay. So then the opposite is pervasiveness of good events. So the optimist believes good events will enhance everything he does, while the pessimist believes good events are caused by specific factors. I have a 5. I'm average here. Yeah, and that makes sense. I think if I was just to ask myself if I was... Well, you are absolutely... Yes, Brianne, you are absolutely very special in many ways. If nobody's ever seen your cakes. They need to, because you are amazing at that. Yeah, so this also doesn't surprise me. Yeah, yep, that makes sense. So here's my hopefulness score. Okay, whether or not we have hope depends on the two dimensions of permanence and pervasiveness taken together. So finding permanent and universal causes of good events, along with temporary and specific causes for misfortune, is the art of hope. Finding permanent and universal causes for misfortune and temporary and specific causes for good events is the practice of despair. Well, that was a mouthful. That was a mouthful, and it confused me. So just know that the higher your hope score, the more overall optimistic you are. So if your score is 10 to 16, you are extraordinarily hopeful. And 6 to 9, you're moderately hopeful. From 1 to 5 is average. From -5 to 0, you're moderately hopeless. That sounds so... And below -5 is severely hopeless. And again, like, your hopelessness causes depression. So, and it can cause very severe depression. Brianne, you can't mean special. No, you are special. Yeah. And we talked about character strengths too, which you can find out what your character strengths are on the Authentic Happiness website. It's amazing. One of mine is hope. So yeah. Cool. Yes. So sweet. Oh wow, you can see my other, how it's changed through time. Interesting. Yeah, so that's the test. Not the test, the assessment. Whoops. Let me take us back to our chart. Okay, we're gonna do this, because this is where we're at. We get to finally apply this shit, which is awesome. I hope you're all still with me. Oh yeah, did anybody want to watch the summary of the book to, like, get to know it a little bit better? Or have I done hopefully a good job? If you do, at any, like, I'll start playing it whenever you guys want. Okay, so going to our ABCDE power-up. Okay, so this is the tool. And so there is the tool, and then there is the flow of what happens to us. So the adversity happens, we tell ourselves a story, that story causes our consequence, right? Which is our feeling and our action. And then we start to take control of our thoughts with D. And D is, there's two options, okay? You can distract yourself, or you can dispute your thoughts. So use distraction when you have to take action in the moment. Like, there's no other choice, right? Like, when you have to perform now. So say you're, like, I don't know, like giving a speech at work or something, right? You can't just, like, pause everything and go and journal about what's going on for you. You have to perform. So yeah, so distract yourself, and that's literally the skill. Distract yourself just to keep going on. And what I suggest is you then, like, come back later and do the disputation step and, like, actually journal about it, because disputation, it's more effective. So it's where you go on attack and you're gonna argue with your pessimistic beliefs. You're gonna argue with them so that you are able to change your pessimism into optimistic beliefs, okay? And it's more effective in the long run, because successfully disputing beliefs, beliefs that you are successfully, like, changing, they're less likely to recur. So you're breaking those thought habits. So there are 4 steps, and I really should have made a graphic for this, so I'm going to put them in chat instead as we go through them. But the 4, oh, sorry, Tiki, thank you for sharing your results too. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, and, like, what I'm seeing is, like there's just so much opportunity for growth, right? Like, if you come back, and, like, I'm not saying this happened to you, because I can't really, my brain isn't analytical enough to just look at your scores and don't remember what it means. But if your scores do come back and they're more pessimistic than you like, well, awesome, because there's only up from there. And like someone who's really pessimistic and applies this stuff is going to experience the greatest change in their life. Exactly. It's not set in stone at all. And like, if we're going through a really hard time right now, like chances are it's going to be affected in our score as well. Okay, but back to step D in our power up. Distraction or dispute. And we're going to unpack dispute now. There's 4 steps, and I recommend doing them in order. And again, this is like when you have time to like write it out. Sometimes I don't like to journal, so I actually have a tape recorder and I'll talk it out. But I have some means of recording it, which just helps my brain really learn this stuff. And I think that's the important part, is that you're learning it. However you learn best, I would recommend. So the first way you dispute something is you show that your belief is incorrect. So you're gonna look for evidence. So the first one is, here we go. That's your first step, evidence. You're looking for evidence. And this is the most convincing approach, but it isn't always applicable. So like if your negative belief is like your boyfriend broke up with you and you're telling yourself it's because you're unattractive, you're now going to dispute that, right? So I'm unattractive. That is personal. It's also permanent, right? And it's also pervasive, I would say. So it's like kind of all 3 of the pessimistic thought patterns are like in that one statement. So you want to look for evidence, right? Like just look for evidence, and like might start finding it. Like, you know, like, oh, well, you know, people always compliment me on my eyelashes, right? Or whatever comes up. But sometimes, yeah, the evidence isn't there, and that's when you move on to step 2, which is alternatives. So I'm going to type that in. And again, guys, if you have questions, please let me know. Yeah, so you have alternatives. And so here's the thing. Almost everything that happens to us doesn't have just one cause, but we tend to, like, we pretend that it does. So like, I don't know, like your girlfriend yells at you and it's because she's a bitch, right? Like that's the explanation. Or someone cuts you off in traffic and it's because they're an inconsiderate jerk, right? And so if there isn't any evidence to contradict those thoughts, you move on to alternatives, and you want to ask yourself, like, what less destructive explanation could there be? Or is there? Like, what's another way to look at this? And you start finding alternatives. And there will be times, guys, when, yeah, there's no contradictory evidence and you can't think of any other alternatives to explain the situation you're in. Like, there are times when, like, maybe you just really did put your foot in your mouth, and that sucks. So in those cases, you're gonna look at step 3, which is implications. And I don't really like the word they're using for this, because, like, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. It's like not really intuitive, but the implication is the consequence that you're telling yourself is going to happen. So chances are that you are over catastrophizing the consequences. Like, okay, I lost my job. That means that I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment because I'm not going to be able to afford my rent, and I'm going to have to go back home and live with my parents, and after a while, like, that'll be humiliating, and then after a while, they're going to get really, like, mad at me, or they're going to give me, like, a time frame, and I'll have to be out by a certain time, and I'm not going to make it because jobs are really hard to find, so I'm going to end up being homeless, and then once I'm homeless, I'm going to go crazy. Like, it sounds absurd, but this is what we do. This is very common. We all tend to, like, over-catastrophize, and that's not realistic. Like, that is not, like, that is a possibility, but it is very unlikely. So the implication step is you're challenging your catastrophic thinking, and you're looking for what's the more likely consequence, right? Like, what's the more likely, like, scenario, like the most, like the actual worst case scenario, or the likely scenario. So yeah, I lost my job, and yeah, maybe I won't be able to afford my apartment, but yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll just go like live with my friends, or I'll get a roommate, or maybe I'll move to a city that, like, you know, I want to live in but costs less, right? There's all these other kinds of consequences that are much more likely than going home, becoming homeless, and going crazy. So even when there's no contradictory evidence to your pessimistic thought, and even when there aren't any other less destructive explanations or alternatives, you can decatastrophize your worst case scenario and get a much more realistic worst case scenario. There's another step, and if you guys have any questions, please jump in. Always jump in, interrupt me. So the very last step is usefulness. Okay, so there's the 4 steps there. Usefulness. So when everything else fails, the other 3 steps just are not helping you shift into the optimistic thinking, which is not permanent, not pervasive, not personal. You want to dispute with usefulness. And what I mean by this is that sometimes the consequences of holding on to the belief are worse than the consequences of letting that belief go. So sometimes a belief, even if it's like currently backed up by evidence and all that kind of stuff, like, it's so destructive that you can choose to let it go. So in a way, you're like suspending your disbelief in the service of taking care of yourself. Let me think of an example if I can. Okay, let's go back to the example of, like, my boyfriend broke up with me, so I'm not attractive. That's my belief. Well, I'm looking for evidence to tell me that I am attractive, and there isn't any. Like, no one really has ever complimented me, or when they have, it's just been polite. Alternatives, well, there aren't any alternatives because my boyfriend literally said, like, I can't stand the sight of you, you're really ugly, right? Like, this happens. There just aren't any alternatives. Like, he just really wasn't attracted to me, and so he broke up with me. Well, my implication is that, like, no one's ever gonna love me, or like, even if they do love me, they're never gonna be attracted to me and love me. You know, and so, like, maybe like I'm trying to think of like a less catastrophic, right? So it, like, goes on like that, and you can find, like, so if nobody ever loves me, then I'm gonna end up alone. I'm always gonna be alone. You can challenge that, and maybe you're able to believe that, well, you won't be alone, you'll at least have friends, right? And, like, maybe that'll be enough to, like, shift you. It might not be. So then you go to usefulness, and you ask yourself, like, how useful is believing that I'm unattractive really is? Is it serving me or is it hurting me? And does it really fucking matter, right? Like, does beauty really matter? Well, I'm gonna let it go, because clearly it's not a belief that's ever gonna serve me, whether it's true or not, and I can't fully prove that it is true or that it isn't true. So I'll just go ahead and let it go. I think that example was okay. As you do this practice, you'll come up with better ones, I'm sure, from real life. So that's step D. You want to distract yourself if you have to perform in the moment. And if you don't have to perform in the moment and you can take time, you want to do disputation. And that's step 1 is evidence, step 2, alternatives, step 3, implications, step 4 is usefulness. So step D is really, really big, but it's the crucial step because it leads directly to step E, which is the shift in how you feel or your energy. The E is what lets you know if your disputation, if your step D was successful. And success here means that your consequences have changed. They're no longer the consequences of a pessimistic thought. So they're not heavy. They're not causing you to feel helpless, causing you to feel stuck, depressed, sad, bad about yourself, angry. all of that's gone, and instead you are feeling better, you're feeling happier, and you're lighter, and you're more likely to take positive action. So it's literally as you shift from a pessimistic thought to the optimistic thought, your C in A, B, C, D, E completely changes. So you're changing the B, which changes your C, and that's it. Like, that is the process. Yeah, I'll definitely take you here. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I think it might be helpful to, because distraction, I think, can be anything that gets you outside of that, like interrupts that negative thought pattern so that you can just keep doing what you have to do to get on in the moment. So I don't know, like a high pressure situation, like maybe that comes to my brain right now is I'm giving a eulogy at a funeral, and all eyes are on me, and all of a sudden I see somebody who has like a nasty face, and they're like just glaring at me, and the thought comes to mind that oh wow, I've here I went again, I pissed somebody off, like I can't please everybody, what am I gonna do, right? Like some sort of like, it's hard for me to come up with a pessimistic thought because I'm pretty optimistic, but I'm hoping you're getting that there's like a negative pessimistic thought that comes up. But I have to finish the eulogy, so a distraction would be I don't look at that person anymore. Or I take a moment to look down at my notes and I take a breath and I continue on. Another distraction could be that I think it's a coping mechanism, but like I'll play with my hair, you know? Yeah, like I think you just got to be really creative. I love the idea of candy. I love it. Yeah, exactly. It's anything that changes your focus so that you can just finish what you have to finish in the moment. But yeah, and that's why I like definitely recommend as soon as you get the chance, like go and do the disputation, because distraction is like you're ignoring it just to survive in the moment, but ignoring it means that it's likely to come up for you again. I love it. Yes. Find someone with a more positive face at a funeral and focus on them. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. I know it's a lot. But that is the big sweeps, the big idea, the big tool. And as I'm sitting here, I realized I was really remiss because I meant to update our ABC tool to include steps D and E, and I didn't. So I'm gonna write a note and I'm gonna create an updated tool and I'll share it. But you also have I'm just gonna update it after the cast so you can use the link that Brianne did earlier, and within an hour after the cast it will have the 2 other steps in it. So no worries there. I think I can fix that problem. I have a really cool quote from Dr. Seligman kind of as a summary, and he says that the main tool for changing, hold on. Okay, I can come back centered now. That was annoying. The main tool for changing our interpretations of adversity is disputation. So practice disputing your automatic interpretations all the time from now on. Anytime you find yourself down or anxious or angry, ask what you are saying to yourself. Sometimes the beliefs will turn out to be accurate. And when this is so, concentrate on the ways you can alter the situation and prevent adversity from becoming disaster. But usually your negative beliefs are distortions. Challenge them. Don't let them run your emotional life. Unlike dieting, learned optimism is easy to maintain once you start. Once you get in the habit of disputing negative beliefs, your daily life will run much better and you will feel much happier. Very cool. And he ends the book on a very big thought, which I really, really wanted to share. Because I think it encapsulates the hope that I felt from reading this book and discovering this tool. Because guys, clinically or research wise, this prevents depression and anxiety. What? Yes. That's huge. That's huge. So he ends it with this very powerful thought. Optimism is a tool to help the individual achieve the goals he has set for himself. It is in the choice of the goals themselves that meaning or emptiness resides. So when learned optimism is coupled with a renewed commitment to the commons, which is just his phrase for saying to other people or to the world, like making the world, when your optimism is coupled with a renewed commitment to making the world a better place, our epidemic of depression and meaninglessness may end. Like, that's so cool, and that ties into all our other streams, because we've done a lot of talking about what's meaningful. And meaning is the opposite of a feeling of emptiness. And yeah, so it's just very, very cool. So in and of itself, learned optimism will really help you kick butt and thrive in life. But when you pair that to goals that have meaning in them, that's a life of thriving. And it just sounds so, so very cool. Yeah, so that's what I got, guys. That's what I got. How likely do you think it is that you're gonna start disputing your pessimistic thinking? I'm gonna do it. Like I'm telling you guys, using you guys for accountability. Awesome, Tiki Meher. That is so cool. I cannot wait to hear how this changes your life. Because it will. It will. Like, I have confidence in it. Because I know the research, right? Like, it's there. It's with evidence. But yeah, I'm telling you guys because I want accountability myself. And, which is why we're going over to Habitica. Because I have here in my daily, so I have to do this every day. I have the ABC Power Up. And I'm going to ABCDE Power Up. I made it very hard to do because it is right now. It will get easier. And I have it on every day. I'm saving it. So here it is. I'm either going to do it or I'm not, but I'm actually tracking it. And if you guys haven't seen Habitica before, oh my God. It's free. It's a like habit and to-do list. It's like a habit tracking tool, a to-do list. Like, we have a party of adventurers. We get, like, the party's up top here. And you can join us. Just email me at info@punchlifeback.